Welcome to TellerTalk, the podcast made for story lovers by storytellers. I'm Zosima Granger, a 24-year-old writer with a lot to learn, and for TellerTalk's first episode, I'm joined by the award-winning author of more than 40 books, from parables to memoirs to macrobiotic health books to thrillers, 9 of which have become New York Times bestsellers. When he was a teenager, he started his own high school. He is a classically trained cellist and composer, and I'm very glad to be able to call him my friend, John David Mann. Thank you for being here, John.
This is a high honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, this is gonna be so great. I'm so glad you could make time for this. It's dream come true. Yeah. I wanted to start by asking you some questions that I've never been able to ask you, or I might have asked you in a way, but I've never asked you them clearly, and I've definitely never recorded you answering them. So I'm going to take the opportunity to try and um, um, get your answers for posterity.
We've talked a lot, but I have never been on the hot seat like this. So I'm
Well,
suitably petrified and ready to go.
well, that's good. I'm glad you're terrified. That's a good start. All right. As I said, I'm a writer. Since I was about 8, I wanted to be a novelist, but for years, for most of my life, I could never figure out how to finish a book. I could start one like nobody's business. I could start one so good, but I would get a few chapters in and just collapse, and I would just beat it into the ground, or I just get I just get discouraged and hey, let's move on to the next story idea, and that's going to be different for some reason. And it was never different. I could never finish one. Then, um, then I learned about your writing mastery mentorship, and I immediately signed up. And a year later, I had written the final words of my first novel, Haley's Horizon. Yeah. And I want the watchers and everyone to hear from the source, what is writing mastery mentorship? Why did you start it? And what does it look like today?
First of all, I mean, I remember you talking about the experience of trying to write stories as chewing a story idea until it turned into something like beef jerky in your mouth, like
Yes,
dry and tasteless and like impossible to keep going with.
very graphic.
Um, great image. So first, I want to say I started this. It's a coaching program for aspiring writers, and I started it in mid 2023. So it's been going a little over 2 years. You were one of the OG members. I had an OG class of I don't know about a dozen people who followed with me that first year, and it was such a gas to watch that story take shape in the course of that year. I think it was the only novel. No, it was one of only 2 novels in the program, and it was watching you get to the end of that draft was similar to how I imagine it must have felt to scale Mount Everest. It was like, wow, we're here at the top of the mountain looking out. It was a great experience. And thank you for the privilege of being able to be part of that. That was so cool. And I should say, Haley's Horizon is a phenomenal novel. I read the whole thing, curiously enough, while I was at a writers' conference in New York City. And it was a great venue to be reading your first novel because I was surrounded by all these famous novelists, including Lou Berney. And here I was reading a novel that none of them got to read yet. The program is Writing Mastery Mentorship. I set it up it's for people who are writing fiction, nonfiction, memoirs, parables, business books, how-to books, you name it, because I have found that there is books are kind of like people. They all have, as different as they can be, there is much more that they have in common than there is that they have different. Our similarities are much greater than our differences. And the same thing is true with writing a book. So, anyhow, I started that program in part because For years, I'd had people write to me about writing a parable. People write to me and say, "Hey, I want to write a parable. Would you look it over? Can you help me? Can you coach me?" And I could never find a format for doing that that was time productive. It always would have taken too much of my time away from my own writing, and I never felt like I could charge enough to make it worthwhile or put enough time into it until I found this model of doing things with group coaching classes. And so the way the program is set up is that there's this archived curriculum, talking head me, giving about 36 hours of instruction on how to write. But then the live coaching calls, which we do twice a week. Whoever shows up, shows up. Whoever wants to talk, talks, and we go one to one. And the when I started the program, I thought that those curricula, that the 36 hours of organized instruction was like the thing. It was like the core of the program. And the coaching was kind of like ancillary. And what I found in 2.5 years of doing it is that people are getting a ton more out of the live coaching classes than there's this sense of like camaraderie and community that develops, which has just been phenomenal to watch. And the archive footage, yeah, it's good, it's great, it's okay, it's good. I instruct everything from A to B, A to Z, soup to nuts, but it's the live community that you're part of that really makes the thing come to life. Anyway, I think I answered more than you asked.
You answered everything I asked. And yeah, I will say from personal experience, those coaching calls saved my novel several times because there were times where I was in like the slough of despond and I can't do anything. This book sucks. I can't. And then I would get on the coaching call and I would talk to you and then I would talk to Jeff and Aaron and Bill and Kathy and
Yeah.
and they would just lift me up. And the fact that they all wanted to read my story and I wanted to read theirs. And yeah, those coaching calls uh, were just a brilliant like draft of pure living water.
This is a hard thing to do alone. It really is. Writing is famously a solitary endeavor, and and rightfully so. But man, it's really hard to strike out on this journey without a support group, without people. And it's just not just a support group, but people who know what you're going through because they're going through it too, right? Nobody understands what the writing journey is like other writers.
Yeah,
I don't care. They can be the world's best, psychoanalysts. They don't get it until they've been in these shoes.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of writing, I mentioned you've written more than 40 books, which is crazy. And the range of the genres you've written books in is crazy, like going from parables to memoirs to macrobiotic health books, thrillers, and more. And what I'm fascinated by is how much does your writing process change between books like The Go-Giver and books like Steel Fear?
Audiovisual aid. Yes.
Yeah, and and also, what is your core writing process that never changes?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And it is a little bit like multiple personality disorder, I think. It is kind of weird because I have written in so many different genres and it doesn't feel like a stretch to me. Yeah, that was like I was saying a few minutes ago. To me, my experience of it is there's that they all have a lot more in common than they have that's different. And there are things that are different for sure. I mean, writing a thriller, it's the first time I wrote a parable, The Go-Giver, was the first. It took me a while to kind of get the hang of how that language works. In fact, the first draft I wrote didn't really work that well. It got rejected by a lot of publishers. And what my agent did with me was she like took out a lot. I realized I learned in that process that I had to kind of strip it down and make it simpler, make it simpler, make it simpler. Um, and it took me, that one experience to kind of learn that language of parable writing. Same thing happened with Steel Fear, the other book you showed, my first thriller. And when I spent, oh gosh, over 2 years on that first draft because it was kind of like I was kind of learning how to write a novel as well as writing the novel. And when it was finished, I showed it to a professional story consultant, and she read it and she sent me back 24 single-spaced pages of critique, which was fabulous. And the first thing she said was, I don't think, well, first she said how excited she was about the premise of the novel. She said good things first, which is the first rule of critique. Say what you like first. But then she said, I don't think you quite understand how a thriller works.
Oh,
And I didn't because it was a little bit like the parable deal. I had to learn the language of a thriller. I had to learn that the pace goes like this. You can't let it drop for a moment. I had to cut out a lot of backstory, cut out a lot of what I thought was pretty poetic stuff, and keep it moving, maintain that taut thread of tension that runs throughout a thriller, which you don't need to do with the memoir. You don't need to do, with just about any other kind of book. So that's a long-winded way of saying there's differences in all these different genres, but there's a lot more that's the same. The process feels really similar. Here's what my process is like. First off, um, I always work with an outline, but I never start with an outline. I cannot start with an outline because when I start, I don't have any idea what this book is. The first thing I do is it's kind of like exploratory work, and I might spend a month or 2 months, or in the thriller's case, 2 years, um, kind of just playing with random miscellaneous ideas. If I'm co-writing with somebody else, I might read a bunch of their stuff and get the background. If I'm setting a novel in Iceland, like Cold Fear, I might be researching that environment. Uh, uh, if I'm writing the Go-Giver with Bob Berg, I'm reading a bunch of Bob's blogs and articles and just getting familiar. I'm getting familiar with the territory that I'm working in. But I also just like play with ideas. Go, what if? I imagine a character, imagine a situation, imagine a line of dialogue, imagine a plot twist, or you know, when I was first researching aircraft carriers for Steel Fear, the first novel, I learned that there was a huge, an aircraft carrier is like a wedding cake in some ways. Also very different than a wedding cake, but it's like that in that it's got all these layers, all these decks, 10, 12 decks there. And I learned that there was like a chamber in the middle of the ship that was, 3 or 4 decks high, this big empty, like egg-like chamber, which is where it's a hangar. It's the hangar deck. It's where they house all the planes and helicopters when they're working on them or when they're not up on the top deck. And when I first saw that hangar deck, I thought, oh, this would be a cool place to have like an encounter right near the end. Like something special has to happen here. And things like that. I'll go like, oh, I want this to happen or I want that to happen. Um, with no regard for chronology. I don't know where any of this fits. I don't know if any of it fits. And I'll just keep pages and pages of random notes and gradually sort of try to sort them into place until I feel like I'm ready to start. And then I press the go button, and then I'm actually writing a draft. But I might assemble like, 40, 50, 60, 80 pages of just stuff, most of which I won't use, but a lot of which I will. Um, and then once I've kind of organized that stuff, a crude outline starts to emerge from that. And so here's what I do. I work, to me, I work with an outline over here and a draft over here. And I kind of go back and forth. It's like zooming out to see the forest, zooming in to look at the trees. And if I'm working on a scene and I get stuck, and I get really stuck, I just don't know how to go forward, I'll zoom out and say, okay, what's the whole thing look like? What's the story about? And if I like don't know what it's about and I get lost in the outline and I just feel like I don't know what happens in the middle, I'll zoom in on a particular scene and say, well, I'll just write that. Um, and that has saved my life just, thousands of times being able to slip out of the writing and into my outline or to slip out of my outline and into a scene and go back and forth. It's like each one is a crutch for the other. That's how I work. The outline keeps changing until the day the book is done.
wow. Yeah, that fluidity of writing, that was what like you taught me that
Mm,
in writing mastery mentorship, and that's what I was missing. Like I was working with beef jerky. I was
yeah.
completely sucking the juice and the joy out of writing by, like, okay, and when you told me that you don't have to write this part if it's too hard, just skip it. I was like, What? What? I don't have to write it in complete chronological order, and I can. And also, when you said the first draft doesn't have to be perfect, that was what was killing me. Was I just
Yeah,
couldn't. I had to put the perfect thing down, and if it wasn't perfect, it would just stay in my head.
yeah,
And no matter how good it is in your head, it's still in your freaking head. And
yeah.
but once you taught me that, like, just put it down on the page and then just improve it. Um,
It's never as good on the page as it is in your head. Like that's just a fact of life because when it's in your head, first off, it isn't real. It isn't it like it doesn't actually exist. It's like it's formless and vague and shapeless, and so it feels fantastic. But when you try to put it on paper, you have to use these like consonants and vowels, and it gets real. Suddenly, it's real, and it's like, ah,
what
shit,
is this? It's
it
real.
sucks, man. And
Oh,
I think that like 99% of writers, of would-be writers, that's where they get stuck. It's like I can't get past page one because I'm amazed you got to page 20. They can't get past page one because it never lives up to their expectations, and they write a paragraph or two and say, "Oh, that sucks." Crumple it up, throw it away, start over again. Like what's his name in Shakespeare in Love? The guy who plays Shakespeare, Joe Fiennes. Scribbling and then balling it up, throwing it away, scribbling, balling it up, throwing it away, because you're looking for perfection. The purpose of a first draft is to be crappy, but real. It's just a starting place.
I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt. Can I take that? Can I take that quote and, like, the purpose of a first
I
draft?
laundered it a little bit for the purposes of this podcast. I
All
laundered
right.
that a
Yeah,
little
I'm
bit.
gonna make so much on merch. My
Yeah, good.
yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, you mentioned Cold Fear, the second book in the Chief Finn series, and I just gotta say, for watchers or listeners who haven't read that book, the villain in that book, Boone, is one of the best thriller villains I've ever read. He is terrifying and he's awesome. Like, you hate him, but you can't get enough of him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
so fun.
He's
So
funny.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, but also psychopathic. Like
Yeah,
a beautiful combination of psycho and comedian.
yeah, yeah. He's terrifying. He terrifies me.
Hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's funny because this doesn't happen to me that often, but he was a character that wasn't working. I was halfway through, or more than halfway through, my first draft of Cold Fear, and the villain was just like yawn. He felt like a cartoon villain, just a cliche villain, and I couldn't get him right. And finally, I said, okay, I quit. I forget writing him for a while. Let me go find a great villain to read. And so I went and I read No Country for Old Men.
Ooh.
And Anton Chigurh scared me more than any other villain I'd ever encountered. So I read that book and I went, oh, oof, okay, I know how to write Boone. And then Boone happened.
Man, so Boone was inspired by the just flip the coin. Just choose. Just choose.
The thing that got me about Chigurh, Anton Chigurh, was that he was so thoughtful. And it was those passages like that where he's talking about destiny and where that was like, wow, this is fascinating. The guy like is a really deep, interesting character. He also happens to be a terrifying psychopath who kills without a second thought.
Mm.
But Boone isn't like Anton Chigurh. I won't give him that credit. But it made me realize that, well, it just made me realize he's going to be a real person, and I'm going to give him granny glasses and a ponytail and make him look as unthreatening as I possibly can in the first scene when you don't even know he's a villain yet.
Yeah.
And that was a blast.
Yeah. And he also gives a monologue about mushrooms. Is
Yeah.
somehow terrifying. I was like,
Yes.
I've never been scared by a description of a mushroom, but I was like, is he gonna kill everyone in this room because
You're
of
the fun guy.
mushrooms?
Yeah, yeah.
I won't ruin it for people who haven't read it, but you guys got to read it. It's really good. Um, I
Some
of
of the most fun I've had writing anything, by the way.
yeah, I can't wait to write a book where I get to write a really crazy villain. And yeah, someday soon. Oh, speaking of books, of all the books you've written, which was the most challenging to write,
Oh
and,
yeah.
and why?
Uh, I mean, I sort of cheater on the back door of that question first to say, I mean, I find them all tough. It's interesting. Even after, like you said, 40 books, even after I have all the evidence that I sort of know how to do this, I've done it before, it seemed to work out pretty well so far. I sit down with a new book and it feels like, oh God, I don't know how to do this. I don't think that feeling ever goes away. Um, People ask about, we had a really interesting class, a coaching session a couple of weeks ago, where Jeff brought up that he felt like he had imposter syndrome, and somebody else who hasn't written a book yet was like, you have imposter, and I was like, hey, so do I, so do I, so do I. I don't think that kind of beginner's feeling of I don't know how to do this. I don't think it ever goes away, and I don't think it should ever go away. I think that to some degree, you want that. Because if you ever start a book feeling like, I got this is like I can do this in my sleep, well, that's how it's going to read. It's going to read like you wrote it in your sleep. And every book forges new territory to some degree. Um, so they're all hard. But I think, in some ways, The Go-Giver and Steel Fear were the hardest in that The Go-Giver was the first actual book. Like I didn't know how to write a parable. And I was always really intimidated by the idea of writing a novel. So writing Steel Fear was tremendously intimidating. But to answer your question, I think the hardest book biggest challenge was Out of the Maze. And the reason for that is most people are probably familiar with Who Moved My Cheese, a parable by Spencer Johnson, MD. Who Moved My Cheese, hugely, hugely popular book in the late 90s. And it sold, I think, I don't know, 25 million copies or something. It's like one of the best-selling parables of all time. I knew Spencer Johnson and had worked with him on another project for a time. Anyway, I was called upon by one of my publishers a few years ago to write the sequel to Who Moved My Cheese with Spencer Johnson, which was a lovely idea. I know Spencer, I like him, we work well together. The only challenge was that he happened to be dead at the time
That does.
and and had been actually for a year at that point. That presented some let's just say working challenges. I had to take Spencer's notes. He had wanted to write a sequel to Who Moved My Cheese for years and years and years and years and years. And he had notes like that. And he turned it into beef jerky. He'd had that issue with it. He could never get it done. So I got the notes and I got, carry on, do it. And so I had to, I kind of threw out his notes mostly. I had to think of a premise to follow Who Moved My Cheese and then write in Spencer's voice, which is he started out as a children's author. He wrote a whole series of children's books. And, that's not what I do. So capturing Spencer's voice and writing that sequel and making it incredibly simple and yet have the depth and it was just really, really challenging and incredibly rewarding. And it seemed to work.
Yeah, I got to read that. That's one of your parables that I haven't read. So
It's a trip.
and
It's a trip. I
and
introduced a new character. Who Moved My Cheese was about two 6-inch tall people called Hem and Haw. And I knew that for the sequel, we needed to add a third character. So that was like my biggest challenge. Is like, who are we going to develop to go with Hem and Haw? Anyway, I won't spoil any of it.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. That thing about imposter syndrome, I
Yeah.
uh, I definitely have it, and according to you, I'll always have it. So I'm just gonna have to get used to that.
Make
But
it your friend.
yeah, whew, yeah. I'm often frightened that my writer's imagination, the like the place where all my creative ideas stem from, will suddenly just run dry,
The
or
well.
just vanish. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's mostly because I'm not sure what it is or where it comes from. Like, is it the sum of all the books I've read combined with my life experiences? Like, is it unresolved issues turning into artistic inspiration, like by way of the soul's connection to God?
Hmm.
I have no idea. I have theories, but I would love to know what do you think? the writer's imagination, our muse, is, and where do you believe it comes from?
Okay, wow. Wow, that's such a great question. I love that because, going back to imposter syndrome, I have a, I have a sort of personal theory about that, which is, and I wouldn't say it's a theory. I have kind of a personal reality about that, which is, and you've heard me say this before, I know. Um, One of the reasons that I think it's okay to have imposter syndrome, one of the reasons that it's okay to not be sure if you can do this, one of the reasons it's okay to have doubts about your own skill, abilities, talents, etc., is that pulling off this story, pulling off this book, ultimately, I believe, is not up to you. You are not in charge. That once you get an idea for a book, once you're on a track to write a certain kind of book, fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. You are no longer the boss. The story is the boss. The story is in charge, and you are basically there to serve the story, not the other way around. So you may not have all the talent or skill that the story needs. It doesn't matter because the story has it. It's your job to just show up and do your best. And this is a little bit like what Stephen King says in On Writing about how he considers novels to be found objects, like an archaeologist, and your job is to extract the dinosaur bones from the earth, doing minimal damage, right? As little damage as you can. That's kind of what we do. So, I mean, that isn't like a belief of mine. It's my experience. It's how I experience it. I know, I sit down to write a book and I go like, I know this story, like it's already exists. My job is to kind of ferret it out, is to pull it. It's like pulling a fish out of the pond in the morning or something, or, it's like listen to the tumblers of a lock when you're trying to pick a safe. You like the combination already exists. You don't have to make it up. You just have to find it. So where does it come from? I think that the source of the books that you and I write and everybody else writes is infinite. And you could call it the mind of God. You could call it the Akashic records. You could call it the universal library. I mean, however you particularly view, I feel like there is this sort of infinite well of story ideas, story realities that we pick up on, like an old analog radio, tuning into a radio signal through the channel of our experience. And our experiences in life, to me, are like the catalyst or the tuner that allows us to tune into these different stories. Which is why the longer you live and the more varied experiences you have, you know, like the more you can tune in and the more variety and diversity and accuracy your stories get because you're tuning in, tuning in, tuning in. Being a writer is one of those blessed occupations that you get better at as you age, unlike being, say, a pro wrestler or a carpenter, which is like it's really hard to climb up on those houses and build those roofs when you're 68 years old. But as a writer, you get better and better because your experience allows you to tune in to more of that experience. So, through history, people have said that this woman was my muse, or this location, this mountain lake was my muse. Well, they are your muse. They're like your radio dials. They're like your channel receiver. They're like your vacuum tube that allow you to pick up frequencies that maybe you couldn't do on your own. Um, I do a lot of writing with other people, but I don't actually write with them, like with Bob Berg or Brandon Webb or whatever. What I do is I kind of suss out all their stuff and they become like radio buttons for me. And I get to tune into something through Bob's views of sales or through Brandon's experience in the military. I tune into a story. And then once I got tuned in, we're off to the races. Um, so the short answer is I don't think you have to worry. It ain't going away ever.
Oh, great. Yeah, um, yeah, you talking about how you get better as you age because you're perfecting the tuning fork connecting you to that infinity of of possibilities. Yeah, my dad always told me that writers have to live full lives if they're going to be good writers. Because
Yeah.
if you just sit in a room and try to write, the books are going to be bad because you don't have anything to draw on, and you've severed your connection to what makes books great. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I when I'm
Hmm.
back when I was writing Haley's Horizon, I when I was able to write for like 3 hours at a time, which was rare, but sometimes I would just get in the zone, and it felt amazing because it didn't feel like it was coming from me. It felt like I was allowing the story to unfold, and it was just flowing, and I just thought like I might actually be able to maintain some humility as an author because it's not really coming from me. Like it's I'm the I might be the conduit. But
Yeah.
I want my life to be this. So yeah, like I am a writer, but um this 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 stuff isn't just based on me. It's based on connection,
Yeah.
which yeah, which makes my imposter syndrome feel like stop thinking about yourself, just write.
Yeah. Yep. 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 And I think that's just really accurate. I mean, it's like you're an electric wire and you're not the power source. So, yeah. And that's true about experience too. Sometimes for me, when I get stuck in a story, if I go travel or hey, go to the grocery store, I mean, just go out walking, just go out and take a big bite of life somewhere. It's fuel. It's fuel. Even if you don't actually, you know, you often do find that the true little events or experiences or impressions or bits of dialogue or characters or things from your life do slip into your stories here and there.
Mhm.
But much more, it's just the gobbling up of experience just feeds that ability. So yeah, we're good. The well will never run dry.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah. Oh, one thing I've been actually wanting to ask you for a while is what is your favorite book, fiction or nonfiction, that no one else seems to have read?
So I mean, yeah, that's a great question. That's a great, there's a lot of books that I love, like everybody's read. But I'll tell you one. It is a book that I have many times called my favorite novel ever written. And not that I've read all the novels ever written. So this is the favorite of novels that I've read, which isn't that many. It's Kate Atkinson's first novel, Behind the Scenes at the Museum.
I've read it. Yes.
You've read it. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Oh man.
I cannot believe it. You're the first person I've ever said this to who said, "Yes, I've read that book."
Yeah, that's yeah. Go on, sorry.
It's such a wild book. It's such a wild book. And well, first time I read it, it just so blew my mind because it has so many dimensions to it and so many tendrils. And then it keeps surprising me. And even right toward the end, there's this whole theme of incredible pathos that just makes you cry about the narrator's experience that I didn't even see coming. It's a monumental piece of work, and obviously more people than just you and I read it because it won the Whitbread Prize, and that year everybody was scandalized because Salman Rushdie was supposed to win it, and she won it. This upstart lady that nobody ever heard of. But yeah, that's my favorite novel, and she's one of my favorite writers, Kate Atkinson, and nobody but me has read it except you too. So now I have to find another book.
Oh man. Well, yeah, we're gonna have to re-record
Oh,
and ask a
yeah.
question, and then you can find a book that's super esoteric and like no one's read. But
Oh well.
yeah, I actually only read that book because of you
Oh,
uh, bi because you mentioned that you loved Kate Atkinson, and my dad has a wall of Kate Atkinson
oh, really? Good
because
for him, man.
he also loves it. And the first Kate Atkinson book I read was the time traveling one where she keeps reliving her
Life after life.
life after life, and that was so good that I was like, okay, okay, I've got
That
to
book is
read it.
amazing. That
And
book is amazing.
yeah, and then I read Behind the Scenes at the museum, and I've never read a book that has such tragedy and comedy
Yeah.
together and it works.
Yeah,
Usually, like there was a reason that that Shakespeare separated tragedies and comedies. Like they're not really supposed to mix,
yeah,
but
yeah.
those like it was so good.
I'll tell you before we leave that topic, I'll tell you another book that I love, one of my favorite books that very few other people that I know have read, and that is Talking to the Dead. And that's the first novel in a crime novel series by Harry Bingham, a buddy of mine in the UK. Welsh, he's a Welsh novelist, and that's a series of crime novels about a petite uh, Welsh cop called Fiona Griffiths, who has a curious psychiatric condition, who used to suffer from a curious psychiatric condition in which she believed she was dead. And as it turns out, that is an actual real psychiatric condition. And she is one of the most interesting characters I've ever read. And I adore that book. Most people have never heard of it. So there you go. Second book.
Yeah, I have not read that, but now I'm gonna.
All right. Yay.
Hmm. Speaking of books people haven't read, well, I guess like yeah, I'm trying to do a segue into the next question. It's really not working, so I'm just gonna dive in.
And just jump in then.
Just
Changing the subject.
yeah, just turn this. Sometimes readers and writers disagree entirely on the meanings and
Wow.
messages of their books, which is often tragic and often hilarious. Like readers found Pinocchio to be an inspiring Christian allegory, while its author wrote it to be a communist morality tale, a
Did not know
a
that.
completely atheistic, anti anti-Christian, especially anti-Christianity, but anti any kind of faith. And
Wow.
everyone saw it as this boy being raised
Brought to life.
from the dead. This is a Christ figure. It's beautiful. And like so it's both. But and, and also
Wow.
um J.K. Rowling filled Harry Potter with what she saw as clear Christian symbolism and archetypes. And and some readers, the Potter Panic,
A
saw
lot.
it as a gateway to black magic and Satanism.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like how much is the meaning each reader gets a function of the intentional artistry of an author, like the covert impressions of structure, symbol, and narrative, and how much is it just what the reader brings? So John, do you think a book's inner meanings are created by the writer, the reader, or the work itself?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think that first off, just the question you're asking and the couple of examples that you cited, which are mind blowing. I did not know that about Pinocchio. Um, they uh, they really speak to the necessity for some humility on the author's part. Um, Stephen King again says something interesting on writing. I keep referring to that book because it's just such a fabulous book, but it's and also so popular. But he says, he talks about how in the first draft of a novel, you don't think about matters of theme, but when you're going through it the second time, his practice is when I look through it the second time, I start noticing things. I start noticing that I was saying things maybe I wasn't even didn't even realize I was saying, and then he'll do things to kind of bring it out more in the second pass through, and say more about it, bring it out, whatever. Um, and I find that refreshingly humiliating, refreshingly humble, not humiliating, humble approach makes so much sense because here's what I think. I think that it's very, very common to, as an author, intend that a book mean this, and then you find out from readers that they took that. Bob and I are amused by this all the time. People tell us what they learned from the Go-Giver, and it's like not what we thought we wrote in the Go-Giver. We thought we wrote something else, but they got this. A lot of people are very, very moved by the obvious Christian foundation of the Go-Giver. Well, Bob's Jewish, and he didn't intend. Well, of course, I did the bulk of the writing, but it's like people see things that they see that the writer maybe didn't see there. I think that. Um, Speaking for myself, I kind of do something similar to what King talks about. Like, let's say in all three of the Chief Finn books, there were themes in those books that I intend to be in there that I intend you to come away with. In Steel Fear, there's a theme about leadership. In Cold Fear, there's a whole theme about friendship. And in Blind Fear, there's a whole theme around family. Finn starts to discover feelings of family that he really didn't have before. But but that's only my, it's my experience of those stories. It's not necessarily the true experience of those stories. And this goes back to my thought, my belief that the story is a thing, an autonomous entity that exists unto itself. You, the author, are its first interpreter, and its foremost interpreter, but you're not the ultimate interpreter. You're not the only interpreter. So your job is to kind of bring the story to the page as best you can, and then readers are going to read it and interpret it their way. And they may get it like totally wrong, but chances are they won't. Chances are they'll get it, totally right, and maybe but a little differently than you got it. So I think that where the meaning of the story really comes from, in the ultimate sense, is from the story itself. But I think that both the writer and then later the readers taste different flavors in that and pick up different scents from that and get different interpretations of that. And they're all reflections of what's there.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. It's a wild thing.
Yeah, it's a
It's like there's this great scene in Shawshank Redemption, where Andy Dufresne finally has escaped from Shawshank prison, and he's gone through the tunnel of we know what, and he's ended up in the stream, and it's raining, and he's standing there with no shirt on. He's standing there with this iconic shot that is the shot they used on the cover of the video, right? And it shows him in the rain, and it's such a Christ-like figure. It's insane, right? Was that intentional? Did Frank Darabont put it there? Did Stephen King put it there? Um, John Coffey, the hero of The Green Mile, are his initials JC by accident, on purpose? I mean, there's so many of these things that, I have read authors saying, I never meant to put it there, but there it is. It's just there.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool, actually. It is more, to me, more proof of the fact that the author isn't the originator of the story. The author is just the first interpreter of the story.
Yeah, and it has like an infinite an infinite potential for expansion and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
improvement. Well, like yeah, because like when when I was still about halfway through my draft of Haley's Horizon, and I was starting to, and I think I sent my first chapter to all of the writing mastery mentorship people to ask them what they thought. And Aaron read the first chapter and started to compliment me on this wonderful allegory of the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. And and I was like, wow, I didn't know about any of that. But now
Yeah,
I can see it, but
yeah,
I was not intentional at all. But the fact that you got that out of that is more a compliment to you than me, and it's a compliment to the story that we
yeah,
both have like expanded on.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
it was
I remember that.
it was so fun.
I remember that. It's true. I mean, it was like an apple tree. I mean, hey, yeah,
Come on, yeah, there's an apple tree, there's a snake, there's a river. Oh, okay, yeah, I get how that could be a thing.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't intentional, but yeah. But now it is. Well, maybe. I don't know. I'll you'll have to see when the book's published next year.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah. Um, if you could have if you could have dinner with any two dead authors, John, which would you choose and why?
I knew you were going to ask that question, and I started to think about all of the authors from the 19th century, and I thought about Homer, and I thought about, Raymond Chandler, and I thought about all these authors that I admire. But I'll tell you who it would be. Number one, Sue Grafton. Sue Grafton, started, she wrote the Alphabet series, A is for Alibi, et cetera, et cetera, starring Kinsey Milhone, a female private investigator. And when Grafton started writing, she had done some writing for TV. When she started writing novels, we're still at a time when a woman, the idea of a woman being the central character of a crime novel, the hero, was completely, revolutionary. I think V.I. Warshawski was happening around that time, and Kinsey Milhone. Nobody else was doing it. Now, of course, it's like it's a whole different world. But back then, it was very, very radical. And Sue Grafton was one of the most beloved writers in the whole crime writers community. She had a delightful personality. She had a very dark childhood, which you wouldn't probably guess from reading her books, because Kinsey Mahone is like such a upbeat, sunny personality. But anyway, um, Sue Grafton was totally beloved, and she named her books after letters of the alphabet. A is for alibi, B is for burglar, C I forget, D I forget, but it goes on and on and on and on. My favorite of them all is T is for trespass. She kept forging new territory. They were not carbon copies of the one before. She was like growing and developing as a writer, and her character was phenomenal. And she got to Y, and she said for years she had the plot for Z in her mind. Z was for, I forget what it was for. And after the Y book, she died. And it was, I remember read it the day that I read that Sue Grafton has died. I couldn't believe it. Nobody could believe it. And I always wished, one of her family members said that for us, it was quoted in the paper saying, for us, the alphabet stops at Y. And I thought it would be such a great thing if female crime writers would band together and make an anthology of crime stories dedicated to her, and they could call the anthology "The Alphabet Ends with Y." Never happened, but God, I would love to sit down and talk with her, both because I think she would be such a fascinating person to talk with, and also just because, like, we need closure, man. I want to talk to her about the Z novel and just
What does Z stand for? Tell us. Yeah, what does
yeah, yeah. Z is for zero. Z is for anyway. It would that I would love to have that dinner. And I think the other deceased author I'd love to talk with is William Goldman, author of The Princess Bride and All the President's Men and The Marathon Man, and just so many some great novels, but also so many films. Goldman was famous in Hollywood as like the raconteur of the second half of the 20th century. He was a fabulous storyteller. He was the grand old man of screenwriting. And I first started studying screenwriting before I began writing books. That was my plan, to be a screenwriter. And I always imagined meeting Bill Goldman. And when I learned that he died, I was like, no, 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 that can't be. I was supposed to have dinner with him. I was supposed to like meet with him. I didn't get to meet him. I got to meet Lee Child. I got to meet Lou Berney. I got to meet Robert Crace. I didn't get to meet Bill Goldman. That's not fair. I want to talk to Sue Grafton and Bill Goldman.
And that would be such an amazing dinner. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I'm trying to imagine the restaurant that you would go to with Sue Grafton and William Goldman and John David Mann, or or would you want to like rent like an Airbnb out in the woods and like just have a quiet dinner there, so there's like no distractions
no,
and
I think it'd be in the middle of an expensive restaurant with all kinds of people around, waiters and everything like that, and they would just make the center of all of it. And I wouldn't say a word probably the whole time, but ask a few questions, and they would just be in. Phew, I'd love to see it.
oh man. Ah, man. So you started as a screenwriter, but before that, like you're a cellist. When how young did you start learning to be a cellist? Like,
So I started out in life really intending to be a classical musician. That was my background, my parents, and I played the cello in junior high. Played the violin as a kid. Then I went to cello in junior high, and my first career was as a concert cellist. I played some recitals. I played in the symphony orchestra. That was my thing, and I was also a composer. So I had some pieces performed. I won a few awards for composition, and I was on my way when I got distracted by macrobiotics and natural foods, and I got distracted by entrepreneurial things, and I started a high school, as you mentioned, and I started some businesses, and but all along the way, I was always the guy who edited the newsletter or put together the flyer or whatever. I was always seemed to be the word guy. And so, um, uh, yeah, I did all those things, and I didn't really. I spent 10 years as an editor of other people's articles for different journals, macrobiotic journals, network marketing journals, business journals, and I didn't start to really write books. Honestly, as honest, I wasn't writing books until I was almost 50. So I came to the author branch of my career, kind of late in life.
Wow, and you've done all this in like a decade?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, or so. I'm actually 120 years old. No,
Man, you look fantastic for 120, gotta say.
hey, thank you. Don't look a day over 110.
Yeah, come on.
Um,
Yeah. Life
I,
starts at 95.
that's right. That's right. The 95 is the new 15. I've written a lot of books, yeah, in a short time, but it doesn't feel like that because I'm not superiorly rapid writer. I don't just dash books off like Mozart dashed off, quartets. Every one of them takes time, so I don't know. I overlap sometimes. I'm working on several at once in different stages.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one more thing we have in common. We are both cellists, which is really cool. I'm not a composer. I can write books, but I've never been able to compose. And well, I did try to compose once, but then I figured out that I was just um, composing something I'd heard.
Yeah, I've had that experience,
I was
yes.
like, okay,
Look at this
it
clever tune I've devised.
feel like I feel like this feels brilliant because it's Vivaldi.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay, yeah, this is definitely Vivaldi, but because you're both a writer and composer, uh, you you understand both the written word and the universal language of music. So, do you think that books, like music, leave a deeper, more meaningful impression when performed, like when they were read to us as children or
Mm.
narrated in audiobooks, or is the silent, somewhat miraculous, imaginative creation of reading the better way to digest a book?
Boy, that's just such a hard question to answer, actually. Um, my mom was a teacher of Greek mythology, and she was my fifth grade homeroom teacher. When I was in junior high, I think, or maybe it was like upper middle school, like sixth grade, seventh grade, she read me the Odyssey as a bedtime story. It took a number of weeks. But every night I'd go to bed and she'd like sit in the bed and she'd read me a couple of the sections of the Odyssey, and it made an enormous impression on me. I read to my kids. I think that reading to your kids is possibly the best thing you can do for their development and for bonding with your kids as parents. I just think it's a fabulous thing to do. And there is something wonderful about being read to. I love great audiobooks. For 10 years, when I was doing a lot of commuting, I went through volumes and volumes and volumes of books on audio, on tape. But I don't think one's better than the other. I think they're different. It's really interesting. I look at royalty statements from a bunch of my books, and it's typically the audiobook portion and the ebook portion or the print book portion are like roughly similar. Audiobooks are enormously popular, but I've learned that there are people who will only read a book, get a book on audio, and there are people who can only get it on print. Because if they try to listen to it on audio, they get distracted and suddenly they realize they weren't listening, and there's auditory people and visual people and tactile people, and we all have different kind of uh, uh, sensory modalities and makeup. I think people take different things from those experiences. Some people can hear a book and get the full experience from it. Others, they read it on the page and it comes to life in their head. I have a weird thing that happens to me. When I read descriptions in a book, it's like I don't get it. I'll read a page where they're describing the guys walking into a room, and they'll describe the room and the furniture and then what the woman looks like when she's standing there and the expression on her face. And I get to the end of the page and I'm like, wait a minute, I got to go back and read that because I didn't get it. I don't form pictures in my head, which is why for me, creating descriptive passages in books is a real challenge. Like, if I want to describe what a house looks like, I don't know what it looks like. Even if I live there, I don't know what it looks like. I'll have to sit, I have to like figure out, like put it together piece by piece. I am not a visual person. Somebody, I think probably Bill Goldman, somebody once said of Stephen King that Steve has a camera in his head. Like he like sees with a camera. I have a tape recorder in my head. I'm auditory. I pick up dialogue. I get it. But I don't make pictures in my head. So for me, reading on the page is great until we get to descriptions. And then I'm like, wait a minute, wait. And then I have to like tell myself what I just read. It's really interesting. And I think, people are different. So the long and the short of that is both of those modalities, the written word and the spoken word, neither one will ever go away. Neither one will ever be replaced by anything else because we just need them both. A lot of people I know will buy both an audiobook and print book or ebook of some of their favorite books because it's like it's really fun to take it in both ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I love reading books and like the being able to create the world by myself. It does feel like a miracle that I can do every day just to make this happen. But also I I my dad read to us when I was a kid, and I'm pretty sure the reason that my three favorite book series of all time are Narnia, Harry Potter, and Redwall are because I still have very clear memories of us gathered around Dad in the armchair and him just giving it to us. And yeah, I don't have kids yet, but but when I do, there's no doubt that I'm going to give that to them as well because you're right. It it's one of the most golden images from my childhood is
Yeah,
is is my dad just and my mom reading to us.
they did a good job.
Yeah. And 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 then when I started to listen to books on tape and then books on CD and then books on Audible, I started to realize that if you get the right reader, the right narrator, it elevates the
Yeah,
book. Like
yeah,
um, people like Jim Dale and Simon Jones and Nathaniel Parker, Catherine Kellgren, all these people who the books they read are great, but I only ever hear their voices in my head when I reread those books because they just hit it. They elevated it
yeah.
with their performance. Just it was like genuinely magical to
Here's something wild. That so my wife and I, Anna and I wrote the book The Go-Giver Marriage, which, as you know, it's a sequel to The Go-Giver. And I wrote the parable part, and she wrote the after part. And we recorded the audiobook, so we actually do the voices and everything. We switch off sometimes, and
yeah, I've listened to
it's
it.
okay. There you go. The two of us do the Go-Giver Marriage every month. The Go-Giver Marriage audiobook not only outsells the print book, but the audiobook outsells the print book and the ebook combined. In fact, it sells more than double print book and ebook combined. People just like buy by the barrelful the audio book version, and I think it's because it's about marriage and it's the two of us reading about it. And it's like yeah, there is something about the reading of the book that does elevate it. But yeah, a great reader like the guy who does the Chief Finn series, it's just it does bring it to life. It's like watching a play on stage by brilliant actors.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, some books are like some books are so fantastic that um I still have the kind of the childlike desperation to jump inside them and be able to experience the world firsthand. Like I want to walk the grounds of Hogwarts. I want to.
Yeah.
I want to go riding with Bree and Shasta and Aslan, and I want to attend a feast inside Redwall A Abbey. Also, I would love to meet Chief Finn from Steel Fear, but I feel like even if we were in the same world, I wouldn't be able to find him because probably would have no interest in me. It's like, hey, Chief Finn, big fan. Like, no, no, no. So
I
unfortunately,
know.
what I wanted to ask you is which novel by another author would you most love to step inside?
I mean, a lot of the places that are dangerous. I'm thinking about some of these places. Um, I, to be honest, I would love to I like to step inside one of my own novels, which is Cold Fear. I have never been to Iceland, and Cold Fear is so environment centric. It is so much about Iceland, and I fell in love with this place writing about it. But it was during COVID. I couldn't travel. I've never actually been there. I would love to go there and retrace because a lot of the places that I described are really there. I've just never been there. So I'd love to go and step into the pages of that imagination. I would dig getting into the world of Haley's Horizon. To be honest with you, that would be very very far out.
Well,
Provided I was safe.
yeah, hopefully the safe world, not the crazy alternate fire world.
Honestly, I'm thinking more about that like interim place, which
Oh,
reminds me so much of the Wood Between the Worlds in the Narnia series,
yeah, yeah.
which
Horizon.
brings me to my point, which is that the my answer would be Narnia. I mean, I would. It was
Yeah.
that book, in particular, the last battle, the last book. That book had was maybe the most influential book in my life. It was one of several that really, really strongly influenced me as a 10-year-old, however old I was. And I would dearly love to go and spend a day walking in that world.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I
Narnia.
guess we have, but I'm saying to answer your question.
But man, yeah, yeah. Narnia and like The Horse and His Boy is my personal favorite of the books, but but the last part of Last Battle and the last line, the further up and further in,
Yeah.
that yeah, yeah, I can see why that's why you love it so much because yeah, I'm the same. It's
That book that C.S. Lewis died the same day as I think it was the same day as the first episode of Doctor Who aired in the UK. And Doctor Who, of course, is famous for the TARDIS, this phone booth-like device, which is much bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And it's when I almost said when you said what dead writer do you want to have dinner with? I almost said C.S. Lewis because I want to talk to him about that. But it's for another dinner.
well yeah, I well C.S. Lewis won't be able to have dinner with you because he's busy having dinner with me because
Yeah, I'm not surprised in the slightest.
he's definitely one of of the ones because I actually wrote a short story still unfinished well unedited because it is finished but it needs a lot of work about this kind of allegorical climb of a mountain by this boy named Will and he and he and he meets a guide who I named Mr. Paperclip who looks exactly like C.S. Lewis, and the reason his name is Mr. Paperclip is because his
Staples.
yeah is because C.S. Lewis's middle name is Staples, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's and and uh, yeah, and
That's
one
great.
of the reasons I haven't published that yet is because it still needs a lot of work, and I don't want to like I don't want to disrespect a even a character that is based on Lewis until I know it's like up to snuff. So
That's beautiful. I love it. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. Uh, you write a newsletter, Man's Search for Meaning, which, for those who are not subscribed, is a monthly inspiring reflection on a quote from a great author, which I'm going to put a link to um, below. But can so that's something you work on every month, but can you tell me what books you're working on right now?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll just say about Man's Search for Meaning. Of course, man is with two N's. Man's Search for Meaning, and it's a take on the Viktor Frankl book. But one of the things I want to say about that is that one reason I do that newsletter is that I take a quote from a different author every time, and then I follow that with a little biographical profile of the author, and that it is basically homework for me. I need to come up with. Uh, I need to learn. I need to sit down once a month. I just did this yesterday with Mary Oliver, the poet. I need to sit down once a month and come up with a compelling, interesting biography of a writer for everybody reading this. And often it's somebody that I know nothing about. So it's like, it's an exercise for me where once a month I have to exercise my research and writing muscle. And it's such a blast to do. And, it's going to end up being an encyclopedia of authors you never knew anything about. Um, what am I doing right now? So right now I'm preparing for publication a parable called Truth Teller. Um, and I'm beginning work on another parable, which doesn't have a name yet, that I'm doing with a lawyer, with an estate lawyer, which is kind of about legacy and telling the story of your life after you're gone. Curious challenge, that one. I'm working on about halfway through a memoir of Nito Kubain, who's the president of High Point University in North Carolina, one of the most influential and fascinating philanthropists and businessmen in the country. He came to this country at the age of 17 with 50 bucks in his pocket and on a one-way ticket and became, phenomenally successful. Wonderful, wonderful man. I'm writing his memoir. All that stuff is writing for hire. For me, I'm working on my first solo novel, which is set for another exotic locale. Instead of being in Iceland or Puerto Rico in a storm, in a hurricane like Blind Fear, or a aircraft carrier like Steel Fear, this one is set out there. It's set in Western Massachusetts, like where I live, and stars a young woman named Noelle, who may or may not be entirely sane, who happens to be an FBI profiler, stalking, of course, a serial killer. And I'm just starting. I've been working on that for about a year, but it hasn't quite taken shape yet. I'm having to work on it in between all these other projects, but it'll be coming soon.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've been hearing about this FBI profile,
Yeah.
well, since I met you 2 years ago. So come on, man. Where is
Yeah, I know. I know.
I want it
It's
because
get
yeah.
the pressure's getting intense. I know. It's building and building. But
Yeah.
that's as soon as I got the memoir and the parable finished, then I'm focusing totally on that. Although I will say that in 2026, I plan to publish an expanded version of my book, How to Write Good, or at least Gooder, which is currently not available. I pulled it off the market so I could work on it and expand it. So that's going to be a project for next year.
Mm. So you're slightly busy now with publishing a parable, writing a memoir, writing a novel, and expanding how to write good, or at least gooder.
That's right.
Literally, yeah. 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 Also, speaking of writing, how can watchers find writing mastery mentorship if they want to um, get into it?
Yeah. Well, I'll say I have a couple of sort of short programs that are all online. People want to get a taste of my course stuff. One is called Book Concepts that sell, and it's at bookconceptmagic.com. And that's you can once you buy that, you own it forever. But it's a couple of hours of video. That's like a taster. But the coaching program, which you're asking about, which is a 1 year program for aspiring writers, fiction or nonfiction, we have both. We got about a dozen and a half, like 18 people or so in the program right now. It doesn't have a fixed starting or ending point. You can join it at any time, and you're in it for a year. Um, and to see that, you can go to the coaching page on my website, johndavidmann.com, and you'll find a little description of it there and some links to learn more.
Awesome. Yeah, I will put all those links in the description below, so everyone who wants to find it. And yeah, I've been through the 1 year program, and guys, it works. So if you want to actually finally write your first book, I can't think of a better way to do it than with John.
You made us proud, Zosima. It was just so much fun watching you and that novel take shape in the course of that year, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, yeah, because I put Haley's Horizon kind of on a back burner for the last year because I was trying to get an agent, and I applied to like three or four or 80. Uh, and uh, and got a lot of great like suggestions back, but no one bit. So I returned to it and realized that it does still need some improving, and it actually can lose about 100 pages. So I'm gonna because it's about 450 pages right now, and it really should be 350. And
It's so interesting. You know the story. The first draft of The Go-Giver, we've sent it out to like publishers, and it was rejected by all of them. And thank God, because if any one of them had published it, it would have never done that well because it wasn't ready. Same thing with Steel Fear. If I had managed to publish it when I first sent it to that consultant, it just, it would have bombed. It wouldn't have gone anywhere. It needed major revision, and a lot of that was losing words. A lot of that was making it tighter, 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 and tighter. And once it finally did come out, it was ready to come out, and and now it's in development as a TV show. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I think that's great. Your Haley's Horizon is a gorgeous, gorgeous, very moving book. I cried, when I won't say who uh, left us. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a fabulous book. And yeah, I think it probably could stay in the oven a little bit longer. Maybe the crust isn't quite browned.
yeah, and yet if one of those several agents had taken it, then it probably would have been published um, without what I want to publish it with now, which is the incredible illustrations of the illustrator I now work with
Yeah,
in the online uh,
she's awesome.
book book writing uh, business that I started, and with Valerie, uh, this book is going to be like Haley's Horizon is going to be able to come alive because I think I would want to have like at least like 100 illustrations in
Yeah,
in this book, and like not only the full page ones but also those those books that have like just the
little black and white sketch of the
illustrations.
gnome or the beaver or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and so it just makes the book feel alive. And of course, there's got to be a couple of like world maps because
yeah,
as a kid, like the best books like Narnia always had maps and Redwall always had maps, and
yeah,
the books that really stick with you, they show you what the books and I've got like two or three different worlds, so I'm gonna need a couple maps, and I'm yeah, it's probably going to take another year of like editing and illustrating
yeah.
until it's ready, but I think I'm going to publish it next August.
Far out. Wow. I love her. Her work is delightful. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. She's a gem.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
Have to
well,
wait. I'll wait.
we all have to wait, but John, thank you so much for talking with me. This was an absolute joy to be able to spend this time with you, and thank you for answering the questions. Just thank you. It was much fun.
Thank you. As I said when we started, this is an honor and a high privilege to be your guest here for this fantastic series. Wishing you all the best on every level.
Thank you, John. I will hopefully talk to you again soon. But for now, the first episode of Teller Talk is coming to an end. So I'll see you next story.
Take care.